Many cat parents have commented, I need the best, but it needs to be affordable. This option is too expensive for me. And others have actually compared the cost of wet food to raw and have found out that it could be the same or even less. So good on you for doing the maths. Well, my friends, the best and cheapest cat food that you will find is homemade cat food. So why is it the best? Because you control the ingredients and how it's made. Therefore, you control the nutrition that your cat gets. Fresh is best. And since you control the ingredients and how it's made, you can also have more control over the cost. So you can shop around for deals, you can control the quality going to your local farmer's market, you can talk to them and maybe get some pieces for free. And I'll show you how you can spend just over $1 a day on homemade raw cat food, starting with this very simple recipe. Hey friends, it's Jess, and Jericho left me. He doesn't want to be on film today, but you'll see plenty of B-roll, so no worries. So first we'll talk about why homemade, specifically homemade raw, is the best. So as I mentioned, homemade raw is in your complete control, whereas processed food, aka kibble, canned food, when you're relying on someone else to make your cat's food, you don't have as much control. So things like ingredient changes, formula changes, they could stop making cat food altogether. This has happened to me with 2 different companies that I used to feed for Jericho. They could have a recall and then maybe you're stuck. Now you have to find something else to feed your cat because you can't feed the food that you have in stock. But with homemade cat food, you can choose from a variety of different recipes. You can even formulate your own recipe. You can work with a nutritionist to get a customized recipe. And that way you have a lot of ingredients and a lot of different recipes to work with. So you're going to have much more variety. And again, you're going to have much more control over your cat's diet because you aren't relying on someone else to make the food for you. Hello, Jericho. Another benefit to homemade raw is that cats eating fresh, high moisture foods, ideally raw because that's easier for them to digest. It's what they were meant to digest. They have nice, healthy skins and coats. A lot of cat parents have mentioned to me once they switch just even from dry food to wet food, they notice a huge, massive improvement in their cat's coat and skin. So much more lush, softer, less dandruff. This is because it's high moisture, and that's exactly what cats need. Cats rely on their food for moisture. Whereas processed food, specifically dry food, is dry. It's dehydrating. It's only 10% moisture, whereas wet and ideally homemade raw is closer to the cat's natural prey, which is around 70% moisture. And this dry food just dehydrates your cat from the inside out, and water is the most essential nutrient. Another really great benefit to fresh food, and specifically homemade fresh food, because again, you control the ingredients and the quality, is healthier litter box habits. So you may notice that when you switch from a dry food to a high moisture diet, your cat is likely to go to the bathroom much easier because a lot of urinary issues typically come down to the fact that the cat's eating dry food or he's overweight or obese, which increases those feline urinary tract disease issues. But with a high moisture diet, when you're feeding your cat an appropriate homemade raw diet, your cat can lose some weight, so therefore take the risk off of those urinary issues. He's eating high moisture, protein rich foods, so that's also going to make, alleviate some stress on the organs because now your cat knows how to digest his food. So that's going to help with bathroom habits as well. And another thing is less stinky poops, less frequent poops, and less bulk in the poops because there's a lot more nutrients that your cat can actually digest from fresh homemade raw compared to processed food. I always say that most of what you spend on dry food and most canned foods just ends up in the litter box. And I'm sure you've had this happen to you before. You walk into your home and the smell just smacks you in the face. This happened to me all the time when I was a cat sitter. I was like, woo, someone just used the litter box. Of course, they would wait for me to come because they knew that I would scoop it. But with Jericho's poops, they're very small. They are very easy to pass and they don't stink. And I'm sure you might be wondering, what about bacteria and parasites? I do test Jericho's feces every year. They always come back negative. It all comes down to how you source and handle the food. Additionally, you'll notice a lot more energy, a lot more playful behavior, and much nicer behavior because your cat feels better. He's eating better quality food. He's doing this because he wants my attention. Lots of people think that having a cat in an apartment, and they're lazy and they're fat is normal, but it isn't normal. All cats are natural born hunters, and the indoor version of hunting is playing. So if your cat isn't playing or isn't interested in playing, that is not normal. It means that your cat is probably overweight or obese, probably doesn't feel well, and probably you need to change the diet, try different toys, and try new things and get creative, because cats need that physical activity because it's healthy exercise to keep them lean. It's also mental stimulation, because think about how you feel if you're just sitting around doing nothing all day. It's kind of boring. You feel very blah. But when you're out doing things, accomplishing goals, getting active, you feel more mentally stimulated, and the same goes for our cats. Fresh homemade raw can also improve your cat's digestion. Again, we aim to mimic what our cats would eat in the wild, aka what our cats are designed to eat, aka the natural cat diet. So when you're feeding your cat appropriate fresh foods, then the cat knows how to digest those foods, and therefore you're going to have better digestion, better assimilation of those nutrients. Whereas processed food, it's difficult for them to digest because it's very high in carbohydrates, very high in plant-based ingredients that have all of these anti-nutrients that aren't appropriate for cats to begin with. So their body doesn't really know what to do with it and can't properly use that energy because they use fat for energy and not carbohydrates for energy. Carbohydrates just get stored in the body as fat, and that just fuels hunger, fuels weight gain. So it's really a vicious circle of, just overeating, gaining weight, not feeling great, and not wanting to move around and exercise and play. You'll also save money when you switch to homemade raw cat food, so we will talk about that next. Definitely encourage you to take what you're currently feeding, do the maths to see how much you're feeding, the volume of which you're feeding, and the cost per ounce, per day, per month, and then compare it to this maths. So quick disclaimer about the recipe that we're going to talk about. The link is in the description. I did not create this recipe, so please don't ask me about substitutions. If you cannot use the recipe as is, do not use it. This is from catnutrition.org. Again, I didn't create it, but if you are going to use it, please use it as is, or bring it into a formulator if you want to make changes to the recipe. You'll need to make sure that it's actually complete and balanced. Additionally, I would say that relying on only one recipe for the rest of your cat's life is not ideal. And this recipe also does not include bone-in meats. It includes a bone meal supplement. And ideally, your cat would consume whole, raw, meaty bones, not just for the nutritional benefits, but also for the dental health and also for the mental stimulation. But this is beginner friendly. You don't need a grinder. You can buy the meat ingredients locally at your grocery store. You would have to buy supplements online, but that's the case with all types of food. And they're very, very inexpensive supplements that will last a very long time. So the first ingredient is chicken thighs, and the recipe calls for boneless thighs. If you can't find boneless thighs, save the bones and make bone broth. Easy. And then you can use the bone broth in place of plain water in this recipe. You do want skin on chicken thighs because you're going to save half of the thighs for this, or you're going to save half of the skin for this recipe. Cats need fat, and the skin provides that. So at my local grocery store, the price range is about $3.99 to $4.99 per pound, so $4.49 average. And I'm in New York, of course. You're going to have to do these prices based on where you live. But you would spend around $13.47 per batch. So based on what the recipe calls for with this specific ingredient. For chicken hearts, it's about $1.99 per pound. So you're going to spend $1.74 per batch. Chicken livers are $2.49 per pound. So $1.09 per batch, around that price. This recipe calls for 4 egg yolks. Now at the store, the price is very, very drastic changes, $1.59 all the way up to $10.99. Prices in between $7.59, $5.59. The eggs from my local farmer's market are $6 a dozen, so we'll just use that because it's right in the middle. So 50 cents per egg, you're going to spend about $2 per batch. Water is free, although again, I would say, save those bones. If it comes with it, make bone broth and you'll get a little extra benefits. I would also say test your water quality. Unfiltered tap water generally isn't the best. I'm in New York and tested my city water unfiltered through the tap, got higher than the US average and higher than the New York average, but it was still full of chloroform and other disinfection byproducts. So I'll leave some links in the description so you can look more into that, but just wanted to throw that in there, of course, because our goal is to feed fresh food and, avoid these toxins. So for the base of the ingredients, we have $18.30 total for one batch. So all of the supplements are available on 𝐻𝑒𝅄, and they do ship internationally and offer free shipping over $25. So you can get all of the supplements all in one place, or you might be able to find them at your local health food store because they are human supplements, that humans would take as well. Now, keep in mind with the supplements, you are going to have to buy like an entire jar, an entire bag. You can't just buy like 3 tablespoons of one thing. But again, you're going to do the maths to see that this supplement is going to be many batches worth. So this is just one price up front, probably for the entire year of making your cat's food. So per batch, we're going to look at the prices. For bone meal, it's 27 cents per batch. Gelatin, 64 cents per batch. The multiglandular supplement is $1.56 per batch. Salmon oil, 56 cents. Vitamin E oil, 31 cents. B complex, 44 cents. Light salt, I actually didn't see this at my grocery store, so just look around to see what your grocery store says, but you want to make sure it has iodine and you're only using a teaspoon and a half. Taurine powder, you're going to want to buy just to have on hand because in the freezer you might have some degradation. Plus, if you're grinding the meats or cutting them up, you want to make sure that you're covered. So that would be 20 cents per batch if you go with that. So now we have $3.98 total without the salt. So with these supplements and the base meat recipe, we have $22.28 total. Now, this recipe would make around 85 ounces of food total. And the average 10-pound cat consuming homemade fresh food diets would eat around 4 ounces a day. Now, again, I want to mention that you'll have to do the maths based on what your cat's currently eating. Most of the time with wet food and dry food, your 10-pound cat would probably be eating 7, 8, maybe even 10 ounces of food. But that same cat might not need as much with fresh, raw, because of the reasons that I mentioned before. So if you're feeding 4 ounces a day to one cat, then one batch of this recipe would yield about 21 days worth of food, which brings our total to $1.06 for one cat per day. So a lot of people are probably spending more than that and not even realizing it. Plus, with the increase of prices with commercial food, if you're buying food for yourself, if you're following a recipe and making food for yourself, you can do it for your cat. It's really as easy as following the recipe as it is. So comment below, how do these ingredients compare to your cat's current food, and how does the price compare to your cat's current food? Then you can check out this video right over 𝐤𝑄𝑄. It is my full guide on homemade cat food. There are additional recipes, how to transition, how to shop for ingredients, and how to put it all together, and FAQ. It has everything that you need to know. Thank you for watching. And of course, I will put my complete homemade cat food guide in the description. That includes all of your FAQ, how to transition, how to find other recipes. There are other recipes in that video, as well as meal prep tips and ingredients shopping tips. Thank you so much for being here. Have a wonderful day.